Or I believe there may be another layer to the meaning of the door that Christ had opened before these Philadelphian believers. Namely, I believe this door is referring to the actual door to heaven that will enable believers to enter the Father's house after the rapture. So while believers have an open door to commune with the Father in Christ at any time during their earthly life, and they will have access to the millennial kingdom, there's still a time coming when they will enter through a literal door opened by Christ to enable them to leave this world and enter the Father's house. This door to heaven is mentioned or alluded to at times in the Bible. Consider the parable of the virgins in Matthew 25, verse 10. In regard to the foolish virgins, we read, "And while they went to buy, the bridegroom came, and they that were ready went in with him to the marriage, and the door was shut." This seems to allude to the fact that at the time of the rapture, the bridegroom will come and catch up all believers into the air. And they will all eventually travel through an open door to heaven to eventually attend the marriage of the Lamb. And after they travel through the door, that same door will be shut, leaving the unfaithful professing believers behind. We also have the account of Noah and the ark at the time of the flood. We read that Jehovah commanded Noah to enter the ark, and after he and his family entered the ark, Jehovah shut the door, as Genesis 7, verse 16 indicates. Many believe this account is foreshadowing the time right before the tribulation begins, when raptured believers will go through the door of heaven into the Father's house, and once they're all in, Christ shuts the door, and Yahweh will begin to pour out judgment on the inhabitants of the earth. Lastly, consider that in Revelation 4:1, John tells us he sees a door opened in heaven. As he says, "After this I looked, and behold, a door was open in heaven." First of all, consider the use of the word behold, which seems to suggest that this door John sees was something very impressive, astonishing to the eyes. And know that this same word is used by Christ in Revelation 3:8 when he speaks of an open door before the Philadelphian believers, which also may suggest that the door opened before them was indeed something very glorious and astonishing. Revelation 4:1, John sees a door open in heaven, and he was called up into heaven. And the implication is that he would travel through that door. And the person who opened the door was likely Christ himself. As we've seen from Revelation 3:8, Christ has the key of David, the key to the Father's house, and he is the one who opens the door to enable people to come in. I don't believe it's a coincidence that shortly after John hears of Christ's authority to open a door, they actually ends up seeing an open door to heaven before him, and he's basically being commanded to travel through the door into the Father's presence. This seems to be the case with the door that Christ has opened before the church of Philadelphia, as we read in Revelation 3:8. Because of their great faithfulness, they had the privilege of eventually going through this door to heaven. And when they traveled through this door, the door would be shut behind them and the tribulation would begin on the earth. Now consider that this idea is in complete harmony with the very promise Christ makes to the church of Philadelphia in verse 10, where he tells them he will keep them from the hour of trial that will come upon all the world. It would seem that the very means by which the faithful believers in Philadelphia would be kept from the hour of trial is by going through the open door Christ has set before them. They will obviously be first raptured off the earth, gathered to Christ, and then they as all one body will go through the open door into the Father's house to eventually partake of the marriage of the Lamb.